Welcome to Fantasy Focus. Today's podcast is presented by Geico. You can watch us every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on ESPN's Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube feeds, as well as the ESPN app. And you can download Fantasy Focus wherever you get your podcast. And let me correct myself before Matthew does. We're on the show this week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Nobody likes false advertising.
Yeah, and when Field says you can watch us at all those places, I just want to be clear. You don't have to. I don't want anyone to feel pressure. The holidays are tough enough as it is. And people get under pressure and they feel like they have to do certain things and they get down on themselves, and it can sometimes be a dangerous and dark place. And so I just want to say that if you would like to join us, we're here for you. And if you would not like to join us, no pressure. We love you anyway. It's all good.
I have a question for you.
Watch, don't watch. Listen, don't listen.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah, what do you got?
So you're giving people the option to not watch or not listen.
I'm giving them permission, yeah.
However, you are saying that while they are either watching or listening to the show right now.
Correct. But they may be doing so out of obligation. They may not want to be here. Maybe some sort of guilt that has been embedded in them by us.
Got it.
Telling, you got to watch, got to download, got to listen. And now I'm saying, listen, I'm giving you permission. I'm giving you my blessing. I will still love you. Daniel will still love you. Field will tolerate you.
Wow.
Stephania won't like you, but that's okay.
Wow. Stephania.
The queen bee, doesn't like very many people.
We're starting by you implying that everyone needs your permission to do anything.
Obviously.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Ask it away, yes.
No,
the chair recognizes Daniel.
Thank you.
Permission.
The chair recognizes Daniel.
This was a pretty
Stephania, clam it.
This was a holiday weekend. I'm just curious. I don't really care about what you guys got, but did you give anything, like one particular thing that you thought was really fun that you were just stoked to give to somebody? You know how you get excited when someone gets something that you're excited about?
Yeah.
Like, was there one thing that you gave that made someone stoked?
Yeah, it's a great question. And a victory. I gave somebody a victory because my team decided to roster Travis Kelce, Austin Eckler, Brandon Cooks, plus Darren Waller, and they were all out. Okay. Right, along with losing
trying to go
Chris
positive.
Carson.
I know,
we
Daniel.
go right back into that same
Woods.
lane.
And so that's what I did. I gave a team that was less deserving than mine
Wow.
a fantasy victory.
Wow.
That's what I did.
Wow.
Is I gave them that, and so it's a pretty nice championship. To beat me. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So that's
cool.
what I did.
So that
Did
was
you have
Matthew's.
something, Daniel? Because I feel like you asked that question, and I think I know the answer to what you're going to say because
I do too.
I saw it on social media. So is there something that you gave perhaps to your mom this year for Christmas?
I know from you guys. I was excited to give Mama Dop a thing, but I want to know from you guys. I gave Mama Dop a big Matthew Stafford print from our buddy Matt Daring. Stephania has a piece from him as well.
Yeah.
And so it's a really big, it's a limited edition Matthew Stafford print. It's huge and it's really fun. And she loves Matthew Stafford. Even now with the Rams, Mom and Dad will try to watch all the Rams games just so they can watch Matthew Stafford, which is
So cute.
Unintentionally, I
amazing.
gave a great gift. So my brother, Taylor's a great guy, best friend, 2 years older than I.
Wow.
Has
I'm right here.
by blood.
I'm right here.
Don't you know how the show
Obligations.
started?
Obligations,
I mean,
right?
Come on.
But Taylor and his wife, Karen, have a beautiful family of 2 children, my nephew Asher, and they have a 5-month-old baby as well. We gave her a gift, but she loved the wrapping paper. And the joy that she had in just playing with that wrapping paper was so unbelievably heartwarming to see. That right there was the greatest gift. So now I've learned a lesson that is we have now purchased for our own future family, literally hundreds of toys. It feels like, not literally, but like all these toys and things we're going to need. I just want to give my kid like a paper towel roll and a plastic spoon, and she'll be fine.
You'll be amazed at what kids will gravitate to. You will, just get used
have
to.
one right next to
Get
you.
used to that.
Love
Yeah,
hate,
I got all excited. Wait, is there wrapping paper here? Is there
Give him a
wrapping paper? What
box.
about bubble wrap? Is there any bubble wrap?
Bubble wrap,
Because now I'm all into that.
Paper bag, maybe.
Yeah. Is there something shiny? Is there anything shiny?
Hey, those poinsettias are poisonous, Matthew. Don't eat those, okay?
Oh, thank you. That's a good helpful hint. That's a good heads up there, Secret Squirrel. What I will tell you is, to answer your question genuinely and honestly, I don't know that there's any one specific thing. Sure. But just in general, my kids are still young. Yeah, I have twin daughters, that are 10 years old. And so they were very excited to see what Santa brought them. And it was just and so here's the other thing I will say is just,
Santa's
so I'm
got
Jewish.
some pasty
No,
white
hang on.
legs. I saw the photo.
Yeah. Well, I'm Jewish, right? I'm Jewish and my wife is Catholic. And so we celebrate Hanukkah, we celebrate Christmas. We are a mixed marriage in that sense.
Love that.
And so I grew up never experiencing Christmas, right? I mean, like I grew up, with both Jewish parents. And so that has been something that has just been really fun. Just, taking religion out of it, just the joy of Christmas morning and the kids and the kids running into our bedroom and, and like, oh my God,
5:30 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All of it and like getting up. And so, yeah, and I threw on the Santa robe that, our friends at Chubby sent me. And so, yeah, it was great. And then Beth and I took a picture in front of that we were going to do. And then after the picture, Beth kissed me, and my daughter still took a picture of that one, and that's the one I posted, which was really cute. It was just like a sort of a candid photo. And anyway, so just that moment, I would say, just the excitement of the kids just being really excited, and they were really grateful, and they loved their presents, and so that was
beautiful.
Great. So that kind of stuff. And
I got to be honest with you. Like the fact that your daughters were that excited about a RotoPass subscription is actually sort of surprising.
Well, theirs had run out, and
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
There's comedy back for Christmas.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Wow.
did you get like a book of dad jokes for Christmas?
They just come naturally to me. They just
Oh God, it's so generous
off
of
the
you.
tongue.
Oh gosh.
They got without going through everything they got. What among the things that I thought for me was the cutest stuff they got is they got a bunch of they got makeup kits and and nail polish and just girly stuff, which they got so excited about, because they can do they're at that age where they love to sort of dress up and pretend and play. And so anyway, that was all really fun stuff.
We went to Nantucket to see my mom for the Christmas holiday, and Nantucket you can get there by fast boat or slow boat. The slow boat's like about 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Right.
There was a girl probably around 10 years old sitting next to us, or sitting the booth over from us on the slow boat.
Yeah.
She did her makeup for the entire time. It was so cute.
She was
The whole
just so
time she was just so
excited, and
excited to be doing her makeup. She was just like 2 hours of just,
They love
love
the
it,
nail,
right?
the nail polish. Anyway, all of it.
So
it's
cute.
Just, it's
We
it's
hope you
adorable.
guys also had an
so-
awesome holiday. It was just I wanted to hear some of you guys' memories because it's just fun to have those.
I agree, Daniel.
Yeah,
Football?
I know Stephania had her family in town.
Oh, so great.
Yes, I did. That was my gift, really. It was for me, but we were all together, which doesn't usually happen at Christmas because of the work schedule. But because my brother came east, my parents came east, we were all together.
So yeah,
Hard to beat that.
all of Stephania's family live on the West Coast. They all live in California and the West Coast, and so it's hard for for them all to travel. But I think what you guys just missed there is what Stephania said in a very sweet and wonderful way, is that Stephania's gift was herself.
Yes.
That's what, when we're saying, did you give something that really made you feel good about yourself? And Stephania said, yes, I gave of myself.
They're standing outside
I allowed
in the
my
cold.
parents and my brother to spend time with me.
She opens the door and she says, "You're welcome."
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That's it.
Here you go.
Yeah.
That's
Listen,
right.
She
Time
also
with Stephania Bell.
good food, good wine, and good New England pizza.
There you go.
Yeah,
All
really
right.
looks like
All
celebration
the way.
next
All
Christmas.
right. I was going to say, yeah, can I?
Football
Wait, what
was
what
not so good.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm trying to avoid that as long as possible. What was the pizza? What do you think is the best New England pizza?
Well, my brother wanted Pepe's
Okay,
was because he's
Yep.
had it before, and that's what it was going to be. So Pepe's
Understood.
all around.
Pepe's in New Haven is legendary.
And they have a couple of locations. They
They
have
do
one in
now.
West Hartford as
Yes, they
well.
do.
So pretty solid experience.
Pepe's
Pretty darn
is great.
solid experience.
I like
amazing.
Sally's as well. I'm a big Sally's
Can't go
guy.
wrong there.
I like
Jimmy's,
modern
West
too. We
Hartford.
like
Daniel's
modern.
like, I like football.
Now we're getting
Daniel
into-
likes football. Let's get to the football,
Sure, it
and
gets my
we
turn.
are almost done with Week 16. We have one
Thank
game
God.
left tonight. It is the Miami Dolphins traveling to New Orleans to play the Saints. They're going to do a blackout tonight in New Orleans. The Saints are going to have like 4 players available. They've been hit hard by COVID protocols. We'll talk about that at the end of the show if time permits. But let's get to some of the action yesterday, and it was the first game for the Bucs without Chris Godwin, without Leonard Fournette, and without Mike Evans, who has not been placed on IR, but did not practice at all last week. And here's what we found out about them. They're still good enough to win games and do so convincingly. It's just a different type of football they're going to play right now. Tom Brady, 232 passing yards, 1 touchdown, just 14.4 fantasy points for Brady, as the Bucs actually really ran the football effectively. But for those that are still playing in their fantasy finals, one of the themes this week is going to be like, don't overthink stuff. Like you've gotten here, like dance with the ones that brought you. If Antonio Brown's been on your bench and you played him yesterday, you were richly rewarded. As Antonio Brown, Matthew, had 15 of Tom Brady's 30 targets yesterday. He was as busy as you could possibly imagine. It's clear that if Mike Evans is going to miss another game or perhaps two more, Antonio Brown is going to be a must-start in fantasy.
He's going to be a must-start regardless. It doesn't actually matter what happens with Mike Evans here. We talked about this. Antonio Brown was on the love list. We talked about him throughout the show on Fantasy Football Now as, you know, you need to put him back in your lineup immediately. This is a guy that in the 2 weeks prior to going on injury, I don't think people realize this, he was the #1 wide receiver in fantasy weeks 5 through 6. And so he was actually targeted on a higher percentage of his routes than Mike Evans or Chris Godwin when all three were on the field for the Buccaneers. So you knew, especially given the lack of depth at the wide receiver position for Tampa Bay, that Tom Brady would look for AB early and often. That's exactly what happened here. Here's the great news. Next week, they play the Jets. They play the Jets. They play the Jets. So, yes, I mean, Antonio Brown is a locked-in top 10 fantasy. I haven't done my rankings yet for week 17, but I can already tell you Antonio Brown's going to make my top 10 here. I would think that if you survive Tom Brady the last 2 weeks, which has been bad, he's got under 20 fantasy points combined over the last 2 weeks, he should bounce back against the Jets. That's the other thing is that, like, in this game, Keyshawn Vaughn ripped off like a 70-yard touchdown.
55, but still very low.
Felt like 70. It
was awful.
Felt like 97.
So, I mean, just unbelievable. Great run by Keyshawn Vaughn. But what I would say is the game sort of got out of hand. Like, I don't, you might look at the production, and obviously he didn't have huge fantasy numbers, but I think that was less about the fact that he didn't have all of his passing weapons and more about just the way that game went. Carolina really struggled to move the ball in any semblance of way there, and they ran the ball so effectively. He didn't need to throw it a ton.
Yeah, the Panthers are really bad.
Yeah.
Panthers are really bad, but it's just the beginning, right? You see Matt Rule's quote after the game?
The Jay-Z quote?
Did you share it?
I did not.
Did you think about sharing it?
I did not. You know what? I actually sort of did. Because just to like laugh at this, like, ha. Because like the insane thing is, so the quote is, do you have the quote there? So the actual quote is some version of like, it took Jay-Z 7 years to become an overnight sensation, like to open his own agency. That was the weirdest part of it all.
Pretty amazing. I got it for you. Right?
Go ahead. Here's
and it's always good when there's 806 quote tweets and 113 retweets. Yeah. Panthers head coach Matt Rule, quote, "I believe it's 1,000% working. I just know no one can see it, and I apologize. As I tell our team all the time, it took Jay-Z 7 years. He had to start his own agency to become an overnight sensation. It takes time." That comes from Nick Carboni, who covers the Panthers at WCNC in Charlotte.
I mean, it's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. Because
you've been around for a while too.
Yes, I have. I mean, understand that, like, so
and
I went to
as
college.
a friend of the guy referenced in the quote, I just want to point that out.
I'm sorry, what, Stephania?
As a friend
of
the individual
Mr. Z
reference
himself,
to the quote.
Mr. Z.
So,
Mr. Z.
So, right. So you guys know, like, I participate in the Guts League, which is Jay-Z's fantasy league, and I've done that for close to a decade. Jay-Z has been Jay-Z in capital letters, like a superstar. Like, I think he is the closest thing America has to royalty. Like, I would argue that Jay-Z and Beyonce are the closest thing we have to a king and queen in this country. But he has been a massive worldwide superstar for 30 years. I mean, like he started Rock Nation, his agency, like 20 years after he was a worldwide superstar. He was a part owner and then sold his interest in the New Jersey Nets to open up the Rock Nation Sports Agency. And he was able to buy that because he was basically a billionaire because he was so insanely successful up to that point. Like, it's like, what do you mean overnight sensation? Like, I'm not saying that Jay-Z didn't work hard. He did. He like, as long as I've known him close to a decade. He's always working on something. Like, his work ethic is unbelievable. But the idea that like he had to start his own agency to become,
it's a weird quote.
It's like, Jay-Z has been a legend for literally 3 decades.
I wonder if he was just messing with us. Like, Matt Rule was like, I'm just going to
Am I wrong on any of this?
No,
like,
you're right. It's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with
painful.
fantasy. It's ridiculous.
Man.
Oh, God. I had to laugh. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I had to laugh.
By the way, shout out to Jay-Z, who's in the finals of his league.
Yeah, Jay-Z, just so you guys know, Jay-Z started his first record label back in '96. That's when his first record came out. So
wow, so almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that's what like...
That comes from our director, Earl, by the way. I do not know that. I do not want to...
Of course
I
you
just
know
remember,
that,
listen, I graduated college in 1992. I graduated Syracuse University in 1992.
Prove it.
I actually have something hanging on my wall.
1992.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It was I went to college in black and white. What I was going to say is that when I was in college, Jay-Z was a thing. Jay-Z was a thing when I was in college.
That's crazy,
you know what
right?
I mean? Like
Yeah.
I remember my friends coming to me saying like, you got to have you heard this? There's this guy Jay-Z. Like, I mean, like that was, 1992 was a long time ago. Again, that's 30 years ago.
People are
I'm
like,
just
what are you
saying.
guys talking about?
I know,
Let me
sorry.
get back
That's
to
So
from
my
it.
point
All
is
right.
right. So
No,
like
no,
I
no,
graduated
you're
in
right.
92. He, I don't know when his first record was released, but
96.
no,
Sorry, that
his
came from Terrence. That not from Earl Arthur.
No, his first record label. I thought you said
His label, yeah,
He
96.
owned his own label. I'm just saying.
We got to
when
talk
was
about
the, when was
football.
the
Oh my
first
God.
single?
I know, Matthew.
All right, whatever.
I love you so much.
Whatever.
I had no idea you were an encyclopedia of Jay-Z knowledge. By the
No,
way, I really want to get into this in the offseason.
I'm not an encyclopedia.
Off-season
of
podcast.
I'm
Love
absolutely not an encyclopedia of Jay-Z knowledge, which is that's the other part of it. Is I think I know a very base level of of Jay-Z's career, and like that's what's insane about it. It's like it's all common knowledge.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
11:16. The rest of the show is football related. I promise.
All right. Yeah,
Ronald
yeah.
Jones, 81 yards, 2 catches and a touchdown. Yes, Keyshawn Vaughn did have the long run, but I still believe that Ronald Jones sort of validated that he'll be a top 20 play, maybe even a top 10 or 12 play for the next 2 games because Leonard Fournette remains on IR. For the Cardinals, they played on Saturday night, and man, this team is.
Is there any Carolina Panther that you would trust going forward? Just to wrap up that game real quickly. No,
none.
their passing game is a mess.
It's a mess.
Some Cam Newton, Sam Darnold. Like, I don't know what the solution is for the Carolina Panthers at the quarterback position. I can just tell you, it ain't on their team.
That's this offseason will be very, very, very interesting. All right, let's get to Saturday night where the Cardinals lose again, their 5th time in 8 games. They're now 10-5 in second place in their own division. They fall to the Colts, who are an impressive team right now. There was no James Conner, though, on Saturday, Stephania. This was one that we didn't know which way it would go when we had our final show on Wednesday last week, and I'm now wondering, could this last another week, even though he was a game-time decision? He did not practice at all this past week.
I know, but they still left the door open for him. Even he was the one who was saying that he was optimistic that he'd be able to play. So I don't think I would automatically assume that he'll be out this week. Again, that we now have a week where nobody's playing until Sunday. I don't expect things to change in terms of game rescheduling at all now that these protocols have been updated. And not that his had anything to do with the protocol, but it does have to do with the timing until their next game. So quite a bit longer until the next game for him, and I think that he'll be okay.
Okay, that is good news there for James Conner. They play the Cowboys this upcoming week. Chase Edmonds was awesome on Saturday, 26.7 fantasy points. He had 24 total touches. He had 17 carries, so he had 7 catches as well. I think, though, Matthew, what I've realized is if it's one or the other, you feel great about starting that Cardinals running back. When both of them are playing, there's a lot of risk involved.
Especially when you think about next week when they're playing the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't want to, I can't get, anyway, the Dallas Cowboys defense is
Tomorrow's show.
tomorrow's show. We might have to do a whole show on that. I still haven't totally.
I know,
debriefed.
we haven't even gotten into it.
But what I will say is that the Dallas defense is playing at a very high level, obviously right now. And feels like the Cardinals offense on some level is broken, right? I mean, I don't know if it's DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know if it's just they've had some bad luck. Maybe Kyler's not 100% healthy, but just feels a little broken. Colts, I don't want to take anything away from the Colts. Colts are a really good defense, really good. They're playing really good football right now. But I would not feel great about if both guys are active. They're basically flex plays.
Yeah.
They're basically, you probably don't have better options, especially in a tough matchup at Dallas. If you do play an ESPN standard league that goes to week 18 where you have a 2-week playoff, or you're in another league where you go 18 to week 18, they do play at home to Seattle, which is a pretty good matchup. On the other hand, by the way, Cardinals may have clinched. We may know what their playoff seeding is at that point. So we'll get to week 18 when we get to it. But at the moment, I agree with your assessment there, Field. It's to me, there's only 3 players on the Cardinals that I think are must starts. Okay. I think it's Kyler Murray, right? I think it's Zach Ertz, given the lack of depth at the position.
Okay.
They're using him a lot. He was targeted a decent amount there. And I think because DeAndre Hopkins is out, I think it's Christian Kirk, right? He's had 21 targets the last 2 weeks. Now, Rondell Moore didn't play in this game either. He was on the COVID-19 list. My expectation is, maybe
I thought he had just an ankle injury, right, Stephania? Rondell Moore?
I believe he has an ankle issue.
Yeah, I
I
don't
thought
think
it was
so.
both. Okay, sorry, maybe it was both.
Okay.
I don't know.
Whatever.
Anyway,
I'll tell you.
He was
whatever.
out.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if Rondell Moore comes back or not. But I do think Christian Kirk is a viable wide receiver 3. You like the volume that he's getting as well. But those are the only, and then Chase Edmonds, if James Conner is out again, would be a must start for me. But otherwise,
If either running back plays, you absolutely start him. And in this case, it seems more likely that James Conner will be out than Chase Edmonds. But I agree with you to a good degree there. Last thought from that game on Saturday night is that I think this was already sewn up a while ago. But once again, Cooper Kupp is the unquestioned MVP of fantasy football. And this is a Jonathan Taylor thing, right? So JT had 10.8 fantasy points on Saturday night. He was good, no doubt. He ran really well. He had a great run early. And I thought that graphic from Fox was unbelievable that I posted on Saturday night on Twitter. It might have been NFL Network who was actually covering the game. He leads the NFL. Did you see this?
No, I didn't.
He leads the NFL this year in 10-yard runs, 20-yard runs, 30-yard runs, 40-yard runs, 50-yard runs, 60-yard runs, 70-yard runs, and 80-yard runs.
Wow.
That's
I
unreal.
watched the game, but I missed the graphic.
It's unreal.
It's unreal.
It's hilarious.
He's great, but the challenge with him is
He
that
doesn't catch passes.
when he
Rarely.
doesn't, right. When he's not involved in the passing game and when he doesn't score a touchdown, which is what happened to him on Saturday night, it's a very pedestrian. What did he get? 11 points?
10.8. So
10.8.
Three games this year in which he's had less than 11 fantasy points. Cooper Kupp has 0, right? Cooper Kupp, your fantasy MVP. Stop adding or debating us on this one. JT is the clear-cut number 2, but Cooper Kupp is your fantasy football MVP.
He is 100% your fantasy football MVP. He had a bad game yesterday. Matthew Stafford had a bad game. Cooper Kupp had a bad game. Still wound up with over 20
I was going to
fantasy
say
points.
bad. I know. Bad, right? Bad. Air quotes there. We're going to come back in just a minute and get all the injury updates from Stephania. But first, do you own or rent your home?
Sure I do.
Yeah, and I bet it can be hard work.
You have no idea.
You know what's easy, though?
What?
Bundling policies with Geico.
Oh.
Geico makes it easy to
I thought
bundle
you
your
were gonna say
homeowners
playing
or renter's
Washington.
insurance along with your auto policy stock. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
Football fans, your season-long fantasy football league is probably winding down, but at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL, the fantasy football action is hotter than ever. New customers can get in the game and play free for millions with their first deposit. Draft a new squad whenever you want for a new shot to be a winner. Playing daily fantasy football is really simple. You just pick your lineup of NFL stars while staying under the salary cap and then score enough points to bring home the cash. And with a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes, you'll feel the NFL action like never before. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, and best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings app now and use promo code FFF to play free for millions. That's right. Enter promo code FFF to get a free shot at millions in total prizes with your first deposit. Do not miss out. Download DraftKings and play with the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
All right, back now. Let's do some injury updates here. And Stephania, the devastating news looked pretty apparent the moment it took place for the Jaguars. And now we know the prognosis or the diagnosis for James Robinson, their excellent running back.
Yeah, he had only 3 carries before he went down non-contact with what turned out to be a ruptured left Achilles. It's just so unfortunate. He finally was getting his chance to really play, right? We all know what a talent he was. It is interesting. He had, there may have been some, foreboding of this given the heel injury that he'd been dealing with for a while. But the good news is if you're watching Cam Akers and you're seeing the kind of progress that players are making now coming back from Achilles injuries, I fully expect James Robinson to be able to return from this.
If you have a spot on your roster for Dare Ogunbowale, he would appear to be the next man up for the Jaguars. More on him on waivers tomorrow, but he basically played every snap after the James Robinson injury. He did find the end zone, 15.2 fantasy points. Adam Thielen, Stephania, came back yesterday from an ankle injury, and it was pretty apparent right away that he was uncomfortable. What's the latest on his ankle and where things are at after the game?
Yeah, we knew he probably wouldn't be 100%, but we've seen him gut things out before. And usually when guys are coming back from a high ankle sprain, what you see is they're not as sharp coming out of breaks. They don't want to put a lot of rotation through their ankle. And that matters because the way Adam Thielen went down, he was tackled low, kind of saw a twist to his ankle, and he was very slow to get up after that. He did try to come back in, had one catch in the second half, but then clearly was not well enough to go on.
KJ Osborne has scored in 3 of his past 4 games. He scored again yesterday. He steps into that role with Adam Thielen unavailable for that second half for the most part. If Thielen's out this upcoming Sunday night against the Packers, Osborne's on the flex radar again, as he was during those 2 games in which Adam Thielen did not play for Minnesota.
His last 4 with 5 or more targets.
Yeah.
He's caught a touchdown in all of them. I know you've scored 3 of the. You said he scored in 3 in the last 4, but in the last 4 games where he's gotten at least 5 targets, which you expect he will get against the Packers on Sunday, he scored a touchdown. He's averaging 69 receiving yards per game. Very much should be picked back up if he was dropped in your league when Thielen came back. We like KJ Osborne here.
We do. Stephania, the Eagles won yesterday again, but it came at a bit of a cost as Miles Sanders left the game late and had a soft cast on his hand after the game.
Yeah, he broke a bone in his hand. So this is not the ankle issue, which has been sort of ongoing for him. It's what caused him to miss a few weeks, and then he has come back and been on the injury report with that, but finally cleared from the ankle, ends up breaking a bone in his hand. We don't know much detail about where the injury is or the severity. And I think that you want to wait and find out that information because we've seen guys, running backs, if you go back to DeMarco Murray, Cowboys, came back and played the week after he suffered a fractured metacarpal in his hand. It depends how they approach it, whether it's surgical, non-surgical, the location, et cetera. So a lot of factors that could determine whether Miles Sanders would be available now or whether he'd be forced out for multiple
He's
weeks.
not going to play next week. I'm going to call it right now. I'm going to tell you right now. Miles Sanders is not playing next week. They're going to take the week off because Philadelphia next week gets to play the Washington, and I'm going to use air quotes here, football team.
Wow.
I see.
So,
Went
like,
with
because
that.
they hail from the Washington D.C. area, so the Washington part is correct.
Yeah.
And the team part is correct because they are a collection of players that play for the same organization. Football, I think, is a bit of a misnomer because I don't know that that's exactly what they do. So the Washington team that participates in the NFL, is probably a more accurate way to describe them.
Yeah.
But it's very easy to run against them. And so, as Philadelphia knows from last Tuesday, so my expectation here is that Boston Scott would lead a committee. Boston Scott, Jalen Hurts.
Jordan Howard left the game with a stinger late as well. So it would appear to be Boston Scott is in the lead of your committee.
Correct.
That will run all over your team, as you point out.
Yes, exactly. So I would think Boston Scott would be a priority on the waiver wire this week as well, Field, along with Kenneth Gainwell. It'll be smooth sailing for Boston Scott. 2 first names, always a crowd pleaser.
Let me correct one thing there. I said that Miles Sanders left the game late. It was in the first half, but he may or may not be available next Sunday against Matthews' football team.
I will tell you that just one of the quote knocks on Miles Sanders is his ability to stay healthy. That this is something that has sort of plagued him throughout his NFL career. That just kind of the nicks and bruises here and
0 touchdowns for Miles Sanders still this year.
Unbelievable.
Crazy. One more injury, Stephania, of note is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had a great touchdown run early for the Chiefs and then left this game against the Steelers.
Yeah, when he left early, it was officially referred to on the Chiefs' Twitter account as him leaving with a collarbone injury. Andy Reid, talking after the game, referenced Clyde Edwards-Helaire's shoulder. I will point out that those can be the same thing.
Okay.
So he said they would wait to find out more today, obviously going for further evaluation, and we'll get a report update later from the Chiefs.
We know what happens next, though. Darrell Williams is the next man up, and the pass-catching ability. We'll see some Derek Gore as well if Clyde Edwards-Helaire does miss some time. The Chiefs play this upcoming Sunday against Cincinnati in a huge game. But you would figure Darrell Williams, if this game is a shootout or a track meet, he should be a very busy player. He's available about 40% of leagues. So go check your waiver wire just in case, but does not qualify for that waiver wire call. Now let's get into
one quick other injury that I just want to sort of bring up.
Sure.
Which is that Darrell Henderson also left the Rams game early as well. We'll see sort of the issue there. Doesn't totally matter in that Sony Michel has clearly taken over that backfield. Like he wasn't getting a ton of run anyway, but just...
Well, he only had one. He had a 17-yard carry and ended up going out with what they called a knee injury. Nothing specific on him yet. But here's what's interesting about Darrell Henderson. Came into the game coming off a thigh injury and coming off COVID protocol, and you just wonder if he, where he was in terms of his overall health coming into the game, already compromised, maybe ends up with a knee injury. And clearly Sony Michel has been the dominant force in recent weeks.
You know who was right on Darrell Henderson before the season? Everybody. Everybody was right. You know why? Because there were two schools of thought. A, he takes the job, he runs with it, and he looks great, which he did for about half the year. The other school of thought was, not sure this guy can hold up. You know what happened? He's gotten hurt or placed on the COVID list. He's had like 3 different things that have come up. So both sides were correct on Darrell Henderson.
They were, but I'll tell you, I don't think there's been anyone that's been more correct on Darrell Henderson or the Rams running back situation than Lindsay Theory.
Ah, yes.
No, our friend Lindsay Theory, who, and we talked about her she covers the Rams for us here at ESPN. She does a great job. And she's on Fantasy Football Now as well. And Field, you and I and Stephania talked about this on Fantasy Football Now Sunday morning, the 3 of us, along with Mike Clay, Damian Woody, and pretty much everyone else at ESPN that you love. And we talked about this, and we talked about the fact that Sony, if you were thinking about which Rams running back you wanted to start, the answer was clearly Sony Michel, at least from our point of view, because there were some people that thought maybe Henderson should be the guy, or maybe it's more of a 50-50 split. And Lindsay was like, nope, it's going to be Sony. She was absolutely 100% correct. It was Sony Michel. And so the expectation here is that maybe you start to see some Cam Akers in a support role. It's still Sony Michel's job. But
no, don't think we're going to see Cam Akers.
You're not.
Okay.
No, after the season.
Not during the regular season.
If Darrell Henderson is out, you will see a little bit of Cam Akers, I believe.
Okay. We'll see. That would run contrary to all the reporting yesterday morning. Maybe you're correct, but the expectation as of yesterday morning was Cam Akers be ready for the playoffs. That was still the plan per Sean McVay.
It was the plan, I think, until Darrell Henderson
Interesting.
got hurt.
Here's what I'd say. A couple of things. One is
I don't think you'll see a lot of them. I don't think you'll see them enough to use them in fantasy.
Maybe all those scenarios are in play.
Okay.
I do think the one thing about Sony Michel is think back to what we used to say about Sony Michel when he was with the Patriots and sort of the chronic knee issue that he had. That isn't gone. Sony Michel looks fantastic now, but he hasn't had to do this much work until now. And so the Rams, the timing has worked out for them in terms of Darrell Henderson carrying it to this point. People might be wondering why not use Sony Michel like this, permanently. I don't think he could hold up to it either. I think the Rams will be at their best if they have a full complement of running backs who are able to divvy up the work. I
was, again, not to name drop, but I asked Lindsay Theory, just, hey, if Henderson is going to miss time, who backs up Henderson? What's going to be the running attack? And she said she thought we'd see some Akers.
Interesting.
So
okay.
We'll see. That could change and everything like that. And so,
My guess would be if he looks fantastic from what he's posted, but he has had 2 days of practice, and just knowing what he's coming back from, I would think they would want to make sure they exposed him a little bit more in practice. Also knowing the Rams and the way they operate, their medical staffs are very good, but. I wouldn't expect it to be heavy enough to make him probably
That's what I just said.
Usable in fantasy. Certainly not for playoff purposes.
No, 1,000%. I just said
Saturday afternoon from Shefty. Akers still is more likely to contribute this postseason, not the regular season, but even that is impressive considering his injury. So that was Saturday afternoon's plan.
Yeah, again, this is a guess, and I think Lindsay's going to write an article for us here at ESPN about sort of the Rams running back situation heading into Week 17. But from my understanding and my guess is that now with Darrell Henderson out, they're not going to want Cam Akers' first game action to be in the playoffs, especially if this Henderson injury is more serious than maybe initially thought. So could I see him getting 5 touches on Sunday? Yes, that's all I'm saying. It's like I'm not saying that Cam Akers gets any kind of usage that you would ever think about starting him in fantasy, but just like we saw this past weekend where Darrell Henderson came in for 1, he was probably going to get 5 to 7 touches in relief of Sony Michel. I could see some sort of role like that for Cam Akers. But again, much will be covered about this story over the following week.
Let's keep things moving here. Let's talk about the impact that COVID had over the weekend. A lot of players were unavailable. That included Mike Williams and Austin Eckler and Jalen Guyton for the Chargers. Mike Williams is an unvaccinated player, which means he will not play in Week 17 as well for Los Angeles. Eckler vaccinated. Don't know on Jalen Guyton. But here's the good news. Austin Eckler gave us a heads up early in the week. If you're going to pick up anybody to replace me, pick up my backup, Justin Jackson. Justin Jackson looked downright Austin Eckler-like yesterday, as he was the highest scoring running back in all of fantasy. 34.2 fantasy points. He led the Chargers in both catches and receiving yards. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. He saved a lot of people's bacon yesterday. If you think there is a chance Austin Eckler will not be available on Sunday, which, as we know, with COVID, you just never know. I think there's probably a better chance than not that he is available, but just in case, go grab Justin Jackson. It's more likely that the narrative is that Justin Jackson saved you in the semifinals of your league, but grab him just in case because he was downright awesome yesterday. I mean, truly incredible. He had some great junk time performances as well, which doesn't matter for fantasy. I'm not trying to take it away from him. That was good stuff. He got you like 6 extra points on that final drive. He was fantastic. His quarterback was okay by the box score. Justin Herbert, 336 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 16.9 fantasy points. But it continues this sort of weird thing you got to live with Justin Herbert. And I suppose this is unfair to single him out because there have been a lot of quarterbacks that have been unsteady so far this year. The highs for Justin Herbert are so substantial, right? He's had a couple of spots where he's kind of let you down, though, more so earlier in the season. But I know this is a fantasy football podcast, but let's take 5 seconds to acknowledge the grit and the toughness that the Houston Texans have shown so far this year. I don't care what the record is. If you don't believe that they're trending in the right direction as an organization, I got nothing for you. They were the laughingstock coming into the season. Some of us thought they'd be gritty, and they have been gritty.
Field, they had over 20 players on COVID, including 8 defensive starters. And I think the narrative from this game will be, hey, the Chargers once again doing Charger-like things, finding ways to lose games that they should have won. Just like they did against the Chiefs. Now they do it against the lowly Texans. What's going on? Should they have gone for 2? Blah, blah, blah. Analytics stinks. Blah, again, Chargers. Once again, losing a game they should win. And I understand that. And by the way, all those criticisms are fair. That's considering how good the Chargers are, considering where they are in the playoff race, considering where the Texans are. This is a game the Chargers needed to, should have, and had to win, and they didn't. It's an awful loss for the Chargers. Having said all that, Field, I agree with you. That's going to be the narrative, and you should take a moment to be like, hey, how about giving the Texans some credit for a great win for that organization? Again, they had 8 defensive starters out of this game. There's no reason they should be able to stop Justin Herbert and a Chargers offense. They're playing Davis Mills, an unheralded rookie quarterback. So much talk about all the rookie quarterbacks, the big name guys, the Zach Wilsons, the Trevor Lawrences, the Justin Fields of the world, right? Give Davis Mills some credit, who's out there with like Nico Collins, and Chris Conley, retread Chris Conley is out there. They didn't even have Brandon Cooks on offense, right? And Brevin Jordan, and I like Nico Collins. I actually think he's an interesting young player, but like it's not exactly like a murderer's row there of pass catchers, and Rex Burkhead is their leading running back. And they got it done against what is, in theory, a good defense of the Chargers. Absolutely hats off to Coach Culley and the entire Texans organization. That's a hell of a win.
Sure was. Bad day, though, for the Chargers offense for the most part. Keenan Allen held to just 4 catches, 35 yards. I have no explanation for it. Josh Palmer filled in yesterday with no Jalen Guyton and no Mike Williams. 5 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown. Excellent call by Matthew. It was a long shot. A waiver wire consideration because there will be no Mike Williams this week and potentially no Jalen Guyton as well.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of on Keenan Allen, and I didn't watch this game closely. I need to go back and watch it yet. Again, we do these things Monday morning. We watch all the games Sunday, so we don't get a chance to focus in on each game until later in the week. But the only thing I can think of is seeing how, first off, Justin Herbert had 3 interceptions in this game.
2, but still.
2.
It felt like 10.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was partially it. The other thing is that Justin Jackson was heavily involved in the passing game. So I wonder if, again, this is a pure guess because I didn't get a chance to watch this game closely, but I wonder if they basically decided to take out Keenan Allen, that he was bracketed, and there was one of the reasons why Jackson got so much work in the passing game is just dump offs, because as Herbert was looking around, he didn't have anyone else to go to.
8 for 98 for Justin Jackson.
I mean, right?
Ridiculous, or maybe
that's got to be I would bet that's among the highest, if not the highest amount of passing game usage for a Chargers running back this year, and that includes Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he had more points.
I don't know if Eckler's had a game with 9 receptions this year.
Yeah, he might have. Yesterday's game from Justin Jackson may have been better than any game from Austin Eckler so far this year. I'm not trying to say Austin Eckler's not the better player. He's exceptional. Just got all you could ask for and then some yesterday from Justin Jackson.
But it's for everyone that drafted Austin Eckler as their fantasy ride or die, and I did that in obviously many, many leagues. it's a little heartbreaking to think about what might have been this week. You know, I had a lot of Austin Eckler teams where I wasn't able to get Justin Jackson that lost, and would have won had I had Eckler doing anywhere close to the production of Justin Jackson. Yeah, I like Josh Palmer as well. That was a long shot that worked out. And
more on
the waiver wire consideration this week.
More on teams that have to deal with COVID absences in just a minute. But first, a word from Daniel.
Football and basketball season is back, and best of all, the safe return of live events means you can actually be there to see all the action with Vivid Seats. From seats in the 50-yard line to a bird's eye view to parking passes, being there is all that matters. And
by the way, for the next Washington football team game, Vivid Seats will pay you to go to it.
Get this. With Vivid Seats rewards, you can earn rewards like free tickets to the Washington football team.
No, or good teams.
Or
teams you want to
teams.
watch. You can earn rewards to tickets. No. You can, from Vivid Seats, you can earn rewards for tickets to games you want to see. If you don't do it, that's your punishment.
Gotcha.
They give you free tickets to the Washington football team.
That's what it is.
So you got to sign up for Vivid Seats. Otherwise, you're going to be punished, and they're going to force you. They're going to come to your house, kidnap you, and make you go to a Washington football team game.
Listen, all you have to do is collect stamps, redeem, and repeat. It is that easy. Grab your tickets today and cheer on your favorite team from the stands. Events for every fan. Visit vividseats.com or download the app today. Vivid Seats. Experience it live.
All right, let's continue with some teams that had to deal with COVID absences yesterday. Stephania, the Ravens were down to their third quarterback. No Tyler Huntley because of the COVID list, and no Lamar Jackson because of that ankle injury. They were down to Josh Johnson instead. Do we have any sense whatsoever on the availability for Lamar Jackson in week 17 or 18?
We really don't. I think this is a day-to-day assessment. He didn't practice at all last week because of the bone bruise in his ankle, and the team really didn't offer any status update on where he is. But it's often a pain management issue when you're dealing with the bone bruise, and pain is reflective that the bone is still healing. So they're not going to put him back too soon, but let's watch and see if he does anything in practice, because without that, I think it's very unlikely if he doesn't practice that he would be playing.
I got to tell you what, Josh Johnson deserves so much credit for how he performed yesterday. I know they got wiped by the Bengals, but Josh Johnson was signed by the Ravens 11 days prior to this start yesterday and played fine. By the way, if you felt like rolling the dice and you put him in as your fantasy quarterback, which we know somebody in our War Room League, Chad Minatillo, who had this, he had to do it. It's a 16-team league. He had Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley, and he had to fill in with Josh Johnson, and actually got a pretty reasonable game, up over 21 fantasy points. And one of the big questions yesterday was, all right, Josh Johnson, been there for 5 minutes. Could that impact the viability of starting Mark Andrews? The answer is a big, fat, resounding no. How good has he been this year? Unbelievable.
He's been terrific, and I think there is a real conversation next year about who the number one tight end in fantasy is. Whether it's Kelsey or Mark Andrews. That's
George Kittle too, or no?
George Kittle's just with the injury history, right? But yeah, I mean, when Kittle's out there, he's on that list as well. And it's been a somewhat disappointing season for Waller statistically, but he's in that upper tier as well. We expect a second year of Kyle Pitts. We'll see what the Falcons offense looks like. But to me, I think it boils down, for me at least, as we sit here today, I think Mark Andrews versus Travis Kelce is a really interesting conversation we'll have in the offseason as opposed to who the number one tight end is. But he's been nothing short of fantastic. He has been quarterback proof, that whether it's Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley, or Josh Johnson. And I want to take a moment here just to appreciate Josh Johnson. I don't understand exactly why he's had to play for 20 different teams in his professional career, why he can't seem to sort of stick around somewhere, because every time this guy gets an opportunity, and it's never an opportunity in ideal circumstances, i.e. he's been there for the whole time. He's got a bunch of weapons around him. He's got a coaching staff that's put an offense in that caters to his ability. For whatever reason, he's always this fill-in guy. He's always the backup that gets a chance, and he always plays his butt off. He's always like, is he perfect? No. Is he a great quarterback? No. But is he better than a lot of the backups currently in the NFL? I would argue yes.
He's played rock solid again yesterday. That's the second time he's played really well, filling in for a starting quarterback this season. Let's move forward here.
But that's the other thing, right? He's in the Jets system. He learns the Jets offense, and then he gets signed off the Jets practice squad to come to Baltimore and save their bacon. Which is a whole different system. Man, I don't know. I don't know. Is there I wish there was some sort of gritty Hall of Fame Like, because then, like Josh Johnson's in that.
Yeah.
Whatever
Well,
that is. Like
is.
gamer Hall of Fame. Like just an absolute gamer.
Yeah,
just
he
like
sure is.
Anyway.
The Bills got a huge win yesterday in Foxborough, beating the Patriots 33-21. They were exceptional on offense as they punted 0 times. The first time in Bill Belichick's tenure as a head coach that he did not force a punt of the opposing team. Wow. They did it yesterday without 2 top wide receivers, Stephania and Gabe Davis and Cole Beasley, who both are unavailable for Week 17 as well.
Yeah, so with the unvaccinated players, you have to go back to the fact that they have to go through a 10-day quarantine. So you look at when were they placed on the reserve COVID-19 list. So for people who are tracking players, and there are a variety of them, 2 that we're talking about right here, but you look at when were they placed on the reserve COVID-19 list because it's going to be at least the 10 days. Cole Beasley was placed on the list Tuesday, December 21st. Gabe Davis was placed on the list Friday, December 24th. So you can do the math forward and know that it will always be at least 10 days for the unvaccinated players.
Okay, so we'll see. No Gabe Davis in Week 17. Did I miscount on Cole Beasley?
Cole Beasley could be back then.
Could
if
be,
Tuesday,
yeah.
back. Okay,
so
could
if
be
he's
back.
right,
It
was
will
it
come
Tuesday
down
for
to
Cole
the wire.
Beasley?
well, Tuesday to Tuesday, and that's 7 days,
wasn't
and then
Tuesday for Cole
Wednesday,
Beasley, was
Thursday,
it?
Friday
Tuesday
gets you
the
to 10.
21st, I
Was it?
believe.
Wow, okay. My math is terrible.
I did
now
that math in
Fields
my
got
head.
me questioning myself, so I'm going to go back and look. But
I could be.
maybe I'm wrong.
It's fine. You're probably right.
I
While
don't
you
know.
guys-
I got a lot of guys I'm following right now, and it is really a question of math. It's a weird thing, right? Because we're doing a 10-day calculation as opposed to just a report. But I think it was Tuesday.
Yeah, you're looking like you're right, Stephania. I'm circling back here, but I believe you are correct.
While you guys look up Cole Beasley, I just want to I want to circle back to the Ravens game real quickly and just say that we'll see who their quarterback is next week, and that'll determine whether you feel like good about. It was nice to see a little bit of Rashad Bateman here. The running game didn't really get Devontae Freeman, who's been really good. He got into the end zone here, but they're just not using their run. They also got blown out in this game, so maybe they had to abandon the run here. I think a lot to be determined about the Ravens once we know who their quarterback is later in the week. Worth noting, they are at home to the Rams, a tough Rams defense next week.
So for the Bills, 2 wide receivers down, and yet they had no issues whatsoever. Josh Allen was simply remarkable. 31 fantasy points, 314 passing yards, 3 total touchdowns, 64 rushing yards, an MVP-type performance from Josh Allen. Devin Singletary ran hard and ran well. He had 18.8 fantasy points. Stephon Diggs was solid, 7 for 85 with a touchdown. But the story of this game...
Matt Breida was a healthy scratch in this game as well. Does feel like it's kind of been an ebb and flow there for the Buffalo Bills running back, but at the moment it does feel like Devin Singletary is the guy.
And then from the story of the day, there was Isaiah McKenzie, Matthew, out of nowhere. What a story this was for him. It was unbelievable yesterday.
We talked about him a little bit on Fantasy Football Now that, Isaiah McKenzie would be their slot guy filling in for Cole Beasley, and especially thinking about how good the corners of the Patriots are. We thought maybe that McKenzie, who's really fast, might have some success. Can't tell you that I predicted that he would have 11 for 125 and a touchdown, but did think he would get used. And I do think he should make your waiver wire column, especially if, to your point, no Gabriel Davis, definitely in next week. Chance that Cole Beasley either isn't there or is it limited because he'll have been on the COVID list. He'll have been on the COVID list for 10 days. So if I'm doing my math right, the earliest he could come back would be Friday before the game, maybe the Saturday, the Friday or Saturday. I don't know if it's like 10 days to the hour, exactly. Like, I don't know whether if he comes back and is at Friday afternoon, so he isn't eligible to come back to practice till Saturday. I don't know. But at any rate, Isaiah McKenzie, super fast. They like him a lot. They play the Falcons. They are home to the Falcons. Yeah. So Isaiah McKenzie certainly should be picked up because there's a chance he once again has a big role against the Jets in Week 17. Emmanuel Sanders, much as I love the player.
Welcome to Dumpsville.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like, just 34 years old, just doesn't feel like, he's been getting it done here for quite some time.
Had a target in the end that he probably could have caught that changed the tenor of it a little bit, but still, it feels like if you were to stack the Bills' most dangerous passing game weapons, it's Stephon Diggs. Might be Dawson Knox next, even though he had a quiet day. He did find the end zone late. The slot receiver, Gabe Davis, if he's healthy, and then probably Further down the list is Emmanuel Sanders. Let's get to a couple more here.
Under 30 receiving yards in 6 straight games for Emmanuel Sanders.
Let's keep things moving here. No Dalvin Cook, who was out yesterday because of his unvaccinated status. Alexander Mattison had a pretty solid day. 70 yards, 3 catches, a touchdown, 16 fantasy points. Wasn't quite as good as he had been in previous games, but if you're complaining about 16 fantasy points, I don't know what to tell you. For the Chiefs, we're without Travis Kelce, as he did not yet fully clear COVID-19 protocols. Didn't seem to bother them that much, even though Kelce is just unbelievably awesome. They scored a ton of points against the Steelers, who are just an absolute mess right now. And I think some are going to say, like, oh, wow, like Byron Pringle, huge day yesterday. Like, he filled it. No, come on.
No.
That's just I think that has very little to do with Travis Kelce and just the idea that, like, somebody had to step up, right? Like, it's just like a randomly good day for Byron Pringle.
I sort of disagree with it a little bit here.
Wow.
I disagree. I talked up Byron Pringle on Fantasy Football Now. I mentioned the fact we were asked this question, I think, in a tweet, and I just said something about the fact that Byron Pringle, by the way, has run more routes, gotten more targets than any other non-Tyreek Hill wide receiver on the Chiefs over the last handful of weeks. It is clear to me, and it was prior to this game, it was clear to me that Byron Pringle had separated himself from Mecole Hardman, from Demarcus Robinson, from Josh Gordon, from any of the other wide receivers in Kansas City that aren't Tyreek Hill. And so do I think that in a full complement, when you have Kelce and Tyreek Hill there, that Byron Pringle could have consistent enough production to warrant a start in anything but the deepest of leagues? No. But I don't think this is as fluky as some people might think, is what I'm going to say. They like him there. And go track my DFS lineups. I had Byron Pringle.
That's fine.
That's totally different. I'm with you.
That's
DFS is 100% where Byron Pringle and Mecole Hardman can live, but season-long fantasy, like I just don't buy it.
I'm with Daniel on here. So Travis Kelce's almost assuredly going to be back this upcoming week. You're not touching Byron Pringle in the fantasy championship
Under 5.5 fantasy points in each of his 4 games prior to this one.
But
he's a DFS play.
Right.
You're
That's all we're saying.
Okay. All I'm saying is that, like, I don't think it was just one of these kind of fluky things. That's all I'm going to say. I think Byron Pringle can play, and I think they like him a lot in Kansas City. And so maybe it's more for the future, just a name to be on your radar.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'm with you. Like, who knows? Like, right. Assuming Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are back, it would be hard to trust them. It would be hard to trust Pringle next week at Cincinnati. I'm just saying, don't dismiss it. That's all I'm saying. Don't dismiss it.
They could have multiple players. They could have 3 guys have big passing game weeks next week. I am not dismissing that. I just don't know that, like, I can say with great certainty that I believe it's Byron Pringle. Assuming Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are both back, like, I think there's a chance that Josh Gordon could find the end zone. Like, it hasn't been great from Josh Gordon. He has really struggled this year. I'm just saying, like, I think that the Chiefs are also prone to, like, Demarcus Robinson could have a big game next week, right? Like, anything can happen with the Chiefs. They could have an offensive lineman score a touchdown. We saw 3 of them score yesterday, and I think that game next week going to be a track
Kelce come
meet.
back and Noah Gray still catch 2 touchdowns.
Of course, right? That's the Chiefs for you.
Right. But I'm just saying it didn't come out of nowhere with Byron Pringle. It wasn't as random as you might think.
He's a good player.
Right. He's a good player, and the underlying numbers suggested this.
All right, so I just want to take a moment to congratulate everybody who started T. Higgins yesterday on advancing to the fantasy finals, because what a performance from the Bengals second-year wide receiver. 12 catches on 13 targets for 194 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was unbelievable yesterday.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It took a while to get going for T. Higgins. First half of the season, it was a little bit quiet. You know, the air yard numbers, the targets, but he's been nothing short of phenomenal over the second half. And I'll just, while you're congratulating everyone that had him on their team advancing to the finals, I will say, I'm sorry, man. I feel you. Everyone that had to face against him, like me, in the league in which I had Kelce out, Eckler out, Cooks out, Waller out.
Yeah, give me some more.
Yeah, exactly. All those guys out.
Okay.
Had to face against stupid T. Higgins.
He was unbelievable yesterday, and the entire Bengals offense was incredible yesterday. Joe Burrow threw for 525 yards. That is the 4th highest single game total in NFL history, just 3 yards shy of being the second most ever. He was next level awesome. He got everybody involved. Jamar Chase had 7 catches for 125 yards. Tyler Boyd had 3 catches for 85 yards and a long touchdown. Tyler Boyd nearly had a second touchdown. Yeah, he had a second one that was called back, by the way. It was like a 31-yard touchdown that was initially ruled a score. Every scoring play is reviewed. It was close. He did drop it, though, or he did not fully catch it, I should say. And that just virtuoso performance from the Bengals. And I don't know. It's week 17. Like, you guys kind of know this already. You're playing T. Higgins and you're playing Jamar Chase, right? And you're doing so pretty confidently. If you have Joe Burrow, you're in the finals and you're playing him again next week. I just want to take a moment to this is so cool. We're having this chat before the show, and I had used the stat on Twitter that the Bengals are now the first team in NFL history to have a 4,000-yard passer, 1,000-yard runner, and 2 1,000-yard receivers in the same season, in which all of those players are 25 years old or younger. This is so exciting for Bengals fans right now. We need to retire what you used to talk about, what the Bengals always did to you. That's over. It's done. They help you.
They are no longer boning you. Absolutely not. Like, I feel great for Bengals fans. I agree with you, Field. We should acknowledge this because the Bengals fans, Cincinnati fans have been through so much. They have been through the ringer left and right emotionally for a long time. I think if you are a Bengals fan and you've stuck with them for all these years, you should wake up this morning not only feeling great over a huge win against a division rival. You should feel great about that. But to Field's point, you should feel great about the young core that you guys have. You guys have a real foundation here for success. Credit Zach Taylor and his staff. Credit the entire front office for putting this all together. Well done. Who day?
Wow. Who day? Big day for them. Really cool.
At it, since we're handing out the congratulations to the Bengals, I just want to acknowledge Joe Burrow, who came back from an injury that a lot of people thought he wouldn't even be ready to start the season, a multi-ligament knee injury. And he was understandably apprehensive at the start of camp. Remember, people were talking about he looked a little bit skittish. He asked for extra practice time so he could gain confidence with the knee. And he's been nothing short of remarkable. He's stood in the face of oncoming pass rush. He's moved around. Notably, he's had confidence in his receiver, Jamar Chase, who he obviously knew from LSU when people were talking about him. And then Joe Burrow sprained his finger, an injury that may still need addressing after the season. And he hasn't missed a beat. He's still throwing for over, 500 plus yards yesterday after that. I mean, I think people are just sort of, it's you gotten comfortable with Joe Burrow. You might have forgotten what he's done in only between, his second year in the league. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Really, really impressive as well. Joe Burrow, one of the reasons Joe Burrow was on
comeback player of the year for sure.
No question about it. He was on Burrow was on the love list going into this week. One of the reasons why I loved Burrow this week was because the Ravens struggle in their secondary. It's a beat up secondary. You can throw deep on the Ravens.
You can throw short and middle too, by the way.
You can pretty much, you can have your way with them. And I bring that up just because, by the way, next week the Ravens have to face the Rams and Matthew Stafford, who, by the way, was also on my love list and did not was a terrible call because Matthew Stafford had his worst game of the year fantasy wise against the Vikings. So if I'm going to give myself praise, I got to give myself some grief as well. Bad call by me, but better days ahead for Matthew Stafford. Again, just so we're talking Bengals Ravens. I just there you go.
I want to ask one question as we close out the show. When you're talking about better days ahead, Matthew, let's say that we had a rookie wide receiver that over the last 4 games had 12 targets, 11 targets, and 11 targets, had 20 plus fantasy points in 3 of those 4 games, at least 15 in all 4 of them. Would you be saying that guy's a set it and forget it for your fantasy playoffs as a blind resume without knowing who that player is?
I know who that player is, and that player is a set it and forget it. And I feel like after the season, we should immediately send Amon-Ra St. Brown to the Hall of Fame.
I agree.
1,000%.
I agree.
But no, he's been nothing short of terrific. You weren't sure, like, wow, Tim Boyle is going to be the quarterback for the Lions. Can Amon-Ra St. Brown continue his hot streak? And the answer is absolutely yes. Like, in a season in which a lot hasn't gone right for the Lions, I think you guys need to be excited about what you have found in Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Good draft for the Lions. Really good draft. Benay Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, amongst other pieces. Ali
Alex
McNeil.
Barnes looks really nice.
Totally, right? No, they found some nice pieces in that first draft. I'm happy. And by the way, speaking of first draft, the First Draft podcast is back in a few weeks for those that like listening to the NFL Draft podcast pre-draft circuit. cycle of news information.
Wow.
That was a lot of
It's
words.
Whatever.
Wow.
Whatever. Let me do this for you, Field. Let a professional host handle it. As you want to start get smarter, if you want to get smarter and more informed, hang on. I got this. I still haven't messed up as much as him. If you want to get smarter and more informed about the college players that maybe you haven't paid attention to as much.
That's right.
About what NFL teams need and are looking for in the NFL draft. There's no one better than Mel Kiper Jr., the legend himself, and Todd McShay, hosted by our very own Field Yates. Check out
They just dragged me along for the ride.
Draft
Let's be honest.
podcast available wherever you get your podcasts.
Great
How
stuff
about
there,
that?
but that was outstanding work by you. Enjoy the game. Monday Night Footballs. The Dolphins look to become the first team in NFL history to lose 7 straight games and win 7 straight games in the same season. It's crazy. For Matthew and Daniel and
I'm going to talk
Stephania,
about Washington tomorrow.
I am
Okay.
Field.
All right.
I look forward to it already.
Tomorrow I'm talking about Washington.
Tune in tomorrow.
That's fair.
to get
I need a
your
half
epic
hour.
rant.
I want you to
TV.
block out a half hour for me tomorrow.
We'll talk to you guys on Tuesday.
Peace out.